I have a few questions about the Tower of Babel. Yeah, that one. Studies suggest that it was built in Babylon or Mesopotamia, which is modern day Iraq. And Babel is the Hebrew name for Babylon. But that doesn't really make sense to me. And given that most information about the tower and those who built it is just speculation, I have my own speculation. First, we're going to look at who was responsible for its construction. Almost all sources point to an individual named Nimrod, who was a descendant of Noah, specifically Noah's cursed son Ham, who inhabited North Africa. So, why would Nimrod be in Mesopotamia instead of North Africa or Egypt? Because Ham's brother Shem inhabited the lands that are Mesopotamia. If we follow the biblical lineage from Noah to Nimrod, Noah's son Ham inhabited North Africa. His son Cush settled the Sudan and Somalia areas near the Red Sea, which would place Nimrod still in Africa. Second, let's look at another account from the history of Nimrod. There's a suggested confrontation that took place between Nimrod and the biblical Abraham, which is an ancestor to Moses. By dating this event and what we know of Abraham, it establishes a time around 2000 to 1800 BC. This will come into play later. But for now, we know that Abraham's descendants were in North Africa, specifically Egypt, because Moses led the Israelites out of Egyptian slavery. Abraham's son Isaac, which is later called Israel, can be placed around Israel, Palestine, and the Mediterranean Sea. Isaac's son Jacob sent his sons to Egypt due to famine and later went there himself. This places Abraham and his family around North Africa, but specifically Egypt. Egypt to the supposed site of Iraq, Babylon, is almost 800 miles. That's quite a bit of distance for the main mode of travel being walking. Now let's take a look at who Nimrod was historically. There's not really a good record of him. Biblically, in Genesis 10:8, it said he was a mighty hunter. It says he built the tower, and he was from the cursed lineage of Ham. Nimrod's name is not found in the list of kings from Mesopotamia. And one other historical significant detail is that it said he built a great canal. So who could Nimrod actually have been in history? There's no real historical records of someone who built the Tower of Babel. What about a legendary Egyptian king that matches those details? The legend says that the Egyptian king led military campaigns all the way into Europe. This would make him a mighty hunter and a man of renown, just as Nimrod was described. Theostris is credited with making the original Suez Canal around 1897 to 1839 BC. This would collaborate the canal story and line up the correct dates to match the time of Abraham. Theostris legends claim that he also captured Babylonian slaves from the Mesopotamia area and brought them back to Egypt, but they escaped. The escaped slaves then created a fortress known as the Babylon Fortress in Egypt, and it continued to go by the name of Babylon up until 30 BC when it was rebuilt by the Romans. Babylon was in constant conflict with Egypt and makes this coincidence very plausible. In my mind, in the biblical references, it places it much closer to Egypt and Israel than modern day Iraq. It would make more sense that the Tower of Babel was created by the same civilization that's credited with being the world's best builders. Without concrete evidence of Nimrod or the tower itself, it's hard to even speculate if it was a real tower or a biblical metaphor that was describing the separation of languages. Maybe one day we'll find the evidence to fill in the gaps, or maybe it will just remain a mystery like so many other great stories from the ancient world.